G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff. Now, lying flat is a different movement from let it rot. Pardon me. Now, these are lifestyles that overlap with other lifestyles. There are similarities, but there are differences. Okay, to understand from the point of view from MGTOW, lying flat has a lot of similarities. One could say both do come out from social burnout, where many men find themselves in a cycle of intense, irrational competition for women, and having to work harder for less results. Or even as you work the same job year in, year out, your wage doesn't keep up with inflation. And your household expenses never catch up, right? You never catch up with your household expenses, I mean. So this creates to social stagnation, where traditional lifestyles are unattainable, such as buying a house and having a family. People choose to stop playing the game rather than chasing the unachievable, displeasurable, often narcissistic object of desire, because you realize that you're chasing someone who merely is only for rent and has you as her retirement plan, not as your life partner. Pardon me. Mental peace. But MGTOW, lying flat, definitely has chosen mental peace over wealth, social status. But there's a difference. MGTOW is not entirely about every aspect of so while there's some similarities with social burnout, it's the pursuit of mental peace. With MGTOW, it's just basically man wants to protect himself from the gynocentric world, where lying flat is about the corporate world, the corporate treadmill, the hustle culture, a toxic workplace culture that so the 2 jobs, always looking for extra income. The lying flat and MGTOW, is again different from MGTOW in that respect, and it just goes on. But where a major intersection lies is the fact that it is prioritizing health, personal time, personal well-being over chasing a target. With lying flat, that target is wealth. With MGTOW, that target is a woman. So there are similarities and there are some major differences. But both are somewhat about your mental and physical health, which is where the overlaps occur. And you could say pretty much a lot of MGTOW are lying flat. But you can't say the MGTOW, a lot of lying flat, a MGTOW. Although a lot of people who lie flat do avoid relationships. A lot of people not all people who lie flat are men. But it's predominantly men. Now, some call the lying flat a Buddha-like mindset, or Fouji in Chinese, which will get you in huge trouble. Just 'cause it's a lifestyle that, though it's characterized and spread well in China, it is found in other countries. It's just not as, it's not seen as a social threat in other countries like lying flat is in China. How dare the slaves not work, right? But this is where bailan comes in. If lying flat and MGTOW are red pill, bailan is black pill. It literally means let it rot. Now, bailan is a social movement amongst Chinese youth who retreat from social competition. It has a lot of mindset from both MGTOW and lying flat. But its core philosophy, it is not MGTOW or lying flat. Instead, what it does, it takes the minimalist lifestyle of lying flat and the no marriage, no children philosophy of MGTOW, but let it rot means to actively give up on life goals, neglect and accept that you have lost the game because it was rigged against you from the start. That's where it differs from MGTOW, because MGTOW is about personal development, self-improvement. But I would argue that can include just social. That could be men's social groups. That could be getting fit, having hobbies, focusing on your hobbies. But several economic and social pressures have led many MGTOW into disillusionment, such as hyper-competitive workplaces. And a lot of MGTOW have become minimalist in many ways. Although one of the reasons why most MGTOW are minimalist is the economic barriers to being anything else. Most people, I pay my rent, I buy my groceries, and at the end of the month, I just have enough for the utilities. And only then can they think about, a lot of people are stuck with their phone bill. Phones are overpriced by 50%, by the way. You know that, right? They're massively overpriced. That's how Apple and many tech companies were able to grow so fast. Now, the Chinese government and state media are not the only ones who see lying flat, MGTOW, and let it rot as a threat. Many governments around the world have far too long embraced feminism. And feminism, such as the 4B movement, which does not precede, 4B does not precede MGTOW. MGTOW came first, but 4B is genocidal. Okay? And they want to destroy they want to destroy literally, mentally, and physically all men. They want a female-only society. You can't have it. You can have a male-only society because we have the technology to reproduce without women. It's called an exo-womb. And there are many other names for it. You try and replicate it, etc. Science fiction has long considered this. And we have a thing called artificial cells. You take an artificial cell or a stem cell stripped of all DNA. You put a sperm into it, and I forget the exact processes from there, but gestation can be induced, and they have produced goats, sheep. Now, humans are different. We're far more chemically and biologically complex creatures, but they have actually grown an animal in a artificial womb or exo-womb without the input of a female. So the society is coming up with solutions to, because for decades now, women have refused to have, women have had abortions to kill sons off, they have had abortions to kill their children, and society is crumbling. And you can't keep bringing in foreigners to keep replacing us without us noticing. Sooner or later, things will get terrible for them. Now, the thing is, you might think, oh, the violence is liberal. No. See, liberals demean so they can commit violence. But they are eventually inviting violence to be done to them. That's why people keep telling them to stop. Because they will eventually turn on each other. Right? You've seen this before. Their hyper-competitive nature is socially and economically destructive. Lying flat is actually born out of a left-wing movement where MGTOW is more generally apolitical. But bailan is also born out of a left-wing movement. So there are many differences, but there are many overlaps. But you can't say with a straight face they're all directly connected, other than they have intersections and similar talking points. But so does feminism, and I would argue that though bailan is more feminist to lying flat's masculine, that lying flat has a lot of similarities and shared beliefs, and I think whereas bailan, it's got more in common with 4B and the destructive nature of feminism than, and it is. It's in India. It's called the Kali effect. If you know Kali, the story of Kali, you'll understand. And just briefly, Kali's a goddess who killed and ate her children. However, she used to be the goddess of motherhood until she had children, and so enraged was she by. Well, there are many stories why she was so enraged, but she was so enraged by, I think it was her husband, although some say it was the pain of childbirth, others say it was story about postpartum depression. Yeah, but she was so enraged, full stop, she killed her children. And thus forever become known as the evil goddess, although there are still Kali worshippers, and that's the Thagi, or origins in the Himalayas, although they claim now to only worship the goddess mother. Just ask all the missing travellers over the years. Because, until the British Empire, the Thagi operated openly. A lot of these cultures and subcultures, they all have deeper roots, but lying flat somewhat has Confucianism, Buddhism, etc., the minimalist lifestyle. 4B is a black pill, like bailan, that comes out of the negative side of the yin-yang philosophies. I say plural because there are plural philosophies all centered around the yin-yang. Korea has its own, actually, tri-yang, or whatever you want to call it, the three colors of the three goddesses. Because there's not just life and death, there's rebirth. But there's the negative, for every god there's a negative. I would say the ancient philosophies, they focus more on the negative to bring out the positive in society. And I think that's where MGTOW could shine, because it has positive qualities. Because a lot of MGTOW is basically, I'm done with the rat race. I've been burnt once, I will not be burnt again. Whereas bailan is giving up before even trying, and lying flat is the same thing. That's where the major difference is. Both bailan and lying flat is giving up before you do. You're not even trying. Now, many countries are quietly threatened by MGTOW, not just China or Japan, Korea. They're fighting both the feminists. They're both Japan and Korea. Seems to be even with Vietnam, Thailand. The negativity of feminism, the negative feminism, the fifth wave feminism, the radical feminist movements, although they are getting a lot of pushback from influencers in the Philippines. Because the Philippines try to love and embrace their Catholicism and traditional lifestyles. And I know that pisses off a lot of Americans, but if you look at success, people who are rooted in tradition, rooted in religion, have the least amount of prejudices, but they have, I suppose, what you have, the prejudices they do have. No foreigners, no foreign rule, something Americans that can't deal with. Because Americans want to welcome everyone constantly into their country, whereas that's not what the founders intended. Unfortunately, liberalism has become so corrupted and so influencing that, particularly and as you see in Europe, that cultural Marxism is corrupting everything it touches. And I would say bailan is reactionary. And this is where bailan, lying flat, and MGTOW are similar, is that they are reactionary counter-revolutions. They're MGTOW is a counter-feminist revolution. It's counter to the feminist revolution. Lying flat is a counter to the communist revolution. And bailan is an extension of that revolution, but it goes beyond communist to also counter-corporate. So both lying flat and bailan are revolutions against the authority of the government and the authority of the corporate state. Again, one is red pill, one is black pill, whereas MGTOW more is red pill. But there are black pill people as well in MGTOW, but the big pill itself is not a black pill philosophy. So they are entangled, and they're not the only ones. You have quiet quitting, a trend in the West, which is similar to lying flat. Now, specific industries like tech are losing people because of burnout. And the only way a lot of people could deal with burnout, particularly in California, is to embrace the minimalist lifestyle. This comes out of the counterculture of the 60s, where they associate minimalist lifestyle with Buddhism. Yes, there are similarities. But again, this is the oversimplification of a very complex social issues. But the major problem in society today, is relentless social pressure. Okay? Used to be, meet a girl, settle down. The problem is, girls make meeting and dating and fleecing you their priority. Society's become so obsessed with tax revenues, the law society and law groups and political and social groups are so insistent when it comes to freedom and free will, that they can't balance anything. It always has to go to extremes. So you have extreme feminism, that's the rise of fifth wave feminism, extreme communism, extreme Marxism, extreme liberalism, which are all just basically fascism. And again, people can't seem to see that you don't have to openly call something Marxist to embrace Marxist ideology, to embrace collectivism. They keep claiming the problem is capitalism. No, the problem is hyper competition for women, where the majority of women will only chase the handful of men and reject the majority of men. And the prettiest are so often the meanest, and turn out to be bicycles that get ridden by everyone but you. That's a weird thing. That's what feminists do. They create a cycle of hate, fear, distrust, and a lot of right now left wings. They try to create fear and mistrust of MGTOW and lying flat. I can understand with bailan. Bailan is unhealthy. A lot of people in MGTOW and lying flat look at bailan and do see a very unhealthy mentality. The problem with let it rot is that it also extends to family, friends. I can understand, look, the social pressures of upward mobility, that's a boomer fallacy. And the grass is always greener on the other side. We used to, common sense isn't taught in schools anymore. Women would rather the opinion of a single mother on TikTok than her husband. And again, because there's no social backlash. See, you could say social pressure, but those are oversimplifications, because the only ones really putting social pressure on anybody are women. They put social pressure on men to earn more, to always to get a bigger house, to get to move closer to schools, to move here, move there, do this, do that. And by the time you've done it all, they're bored because they've run out of things to control. They get bored so easily. Look at the problem of drug use amongst housewives. Well, you go back centuries before you get beyond for over 200 years, housewives have been guzzling cough syrup. You go back. The problem is that women, so much of society is catered for women. Think about it. Food processors, ovens, microwaves, almost everything. Most of the inventions are in the household. Irons, ironing boards. All improvements in technology. No one irons anymore, just get a steam press. It's cheaper and faster in the long run. No, it is absolutely ridiculous. It used to be a common understanding that successful men had a successful family. Success at home brought success at work, because you had a pressure taken off you by someone who is willing to exchange their time and access to their body in return for food and shelter. But the social contract is broken. So these movements are going to be very hard to counter and very hard to argue against, even when they're negative for the mental health of men, where you're arguing, yes, you can't argue against bailan directly, because one of the arguments of bailan and lying flat is burnout and involution. Burnout coming from overwork, hyper competition, and involution coming from the stagnant wages that make the traditional lifestyle as a milestone rather than a starting point. It's the same thing. If you got a job, lost a job, you knew before your next mortgage payment was made, you could find another job. But factories have just decided, instead of taking advantage of the migrant workforce, no, everyone wants to overproduce. And we are overproducing by 31%. We could cut 25% of women out of the workforce and not see a drop in productivity. We'll see a drop in excess waste and material waste. We'll see offices slimmer, overheads go down. But the government revenue, that's what's driving this overproduction. But it's also driving the debt, because the biggest customer in the world is the government, and followed by other businesses. There are entire economies of supply to healthcare, to automotive industries, to tech, of goods and services that only go to tech workers or etc. Because and the problem is tech workers are putting themselves out of business by oversupplying games. There are more games than you can play in a lifetime in many genres now. Some genres, because they're low popularity or so very niche, see hardly any games in them. And there can be years between games in some genres. There's an oversupply of entertainment. There's an oversupply, definitely, in reading, writing, and arithmetic, in tutors. There's an oversupply of lawyers. Every year, lawyers get burnt out and quit. So, it's getting to the point. And again, most of the social pressure does come from yourself. Your own. This is why a lot of men choose the pursuit of mental peace. Satisfaction through hobbies, simpler living, simpler lifestyles, playing video games, enjoying the company of men without being sexual. And this is the problem. Men are encouraged to sexualize everything because the sexualized culture is a culture that can be exploited. They can exploit your sexuality. Look at OnlyFans. Although I did a video earlier today. OnlyFans is going broke. They're burning through money. They've overpaid some stars by millions. They've overpaid. Or I should say participants. But some people have been massively overpaid. And now they're struggling to meet their financial targets. The company relied on its billionaire owner to prop up the company. Its billionaire owner, for a Jewish Ukrainian, has always been in the porn industry and has a lot of the side hustles which he made money from are now being broken up and eaten up by others, or just going their own way. Yeah. It's a sad life. I think it was Buddha who said life is suffering. Christ said you reap what you sow. They're both right. You do reap what you sow. If you have ambition, you are going to be hyper competitive, and you realize And you should realize that your body at 30 might be able to take it, at 40 can take it some of the time, but you're going to start to get more tired. And by 50, your body's telling you, I'm going to kill myself. Literally, you know that your body literally wants to shut down at the end of the day. Literally end, turn off, and yet you still do it. That's why so many people have heart attacks early, and the heart attacks are on the rise, causing a huge spike in medical costs, which is, see, this is the problem. As productivity rises, so does everything else. Social pressures, physical pressures, mental pressures. This is why mental health is on the rise. Drug use is on the rise. Crime is now on the rise. Everything's on the rise again. Because the boomer mentality of numbers go up is a fallacy. Eventually you hit a ceiling. Almost every economist realized this. That's why most economies collapse deliberately. Right? The Africans keep their economy depressed so that they can take jobs, because otherwise the long cost of haulage isn't worth it. Now, the only solution, and this is the solution to many problems, is to break up and decentralize power, to decentralize corporations. The problem is corporations are born out of a so-called concentration of wealth and power mentality of boomers, the so-called efficiency model. Yet, this so-called efficiency has actually decreased government revenue. You do realise, yes, corporations pay a high percentage of taxes, but that's only because there's not enough small businesses making money, when small businesses used to be the engine of the economy. Individual factories, not, big economic engines with lots of factories around the world. But still, small businesses are still the majority of employment. And the biggest, of course, is farming, which is suffering from a lack. The only one who has a lack of employment right now is farming. But again, if it wasn't for the rejection of women, more men would take more jobs. Our culture's poison is the I deserve better mentality. The grass is always greener on the other side mentality. That is where we should focus the counter-revolution, because everything else follows. Right? We've already, right? Corporations won't last. They rely on high consumerism. As people run out of money due to cost of living pressures, to the pressure to have a higher and higher living standard, because when you get married, and of course men walking away from all that, it's going to reduce overall, it's going to have a ripple effect on the economy, and the government's desperation, it's only going to lead to people believing the government is the problem. Yeah, government and feminism are the problem. Both Lying Flat and Bailan see the only way to get rid of government is to stop participating in its game, and it will die like a festering wound. No, it will replace you. That's what mass migration is in Europe, and it will eventually happen in China. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Remember, folks, this is brought to you a complex web of me having free time, but I am a writer, and The Empire of Elves is my book series, and I've created merch from that. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. So please support the channel. You support the channel in a number of ways. Buy my books. Support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. Buy my... Yeah. All my links are in the link tree description below in my profile. Scan the QR code on the screen. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you on the next video. Bye for now.